Hello, and welcome to episode 128 of Things I've Learned from Barry Harris. And today I thought we would take a look at Barry's concept of playing with family. For those of you that don't know, Barry has these beautiful, what he calls the creation theory, where he talks about his hierarchy of chords and where they come from. And the first thing that starts off is the chromatic scale, all 12 notes, which breaks apart into two whole tone scales, which then two notes from one whole tone scale and two notes from another create a diminished, and you can do that 3 times. And then from those 3 diminishes come all 4 dominants. Each one of those diminishes has 4 dominants connected to it. And the way that you find it is, for instance, since we're going to take E7 as an example, we'll start off with F diminished. And the way you find its family members is you just lower each note one at a time. So if you find F diminished, you lower the F to E, you have an E7. If you take the F diminished again and you lower the B, you have B7, B flat 7. So we went from F to E7, B to B flat 7. Go back to the F diminished again. We're going to lower the D to D flat. Now you have D flat 7. And we're going to lower one more, which would be the A flat to G. And now you have G7. So the 4 families that are, the family that's connected to the E7 is E, G, B flat, and D flat. And what's interesting is if you add those notes, those 4 notes to the 4 notes of the F diminished, and then the 4 notes of the family, here's where we get that beautiful diminished scale, which people refer to as half step, whole step. But Barry hates that expression. He likes to say it's the diminished and then the 4 tonics of the dominants, because then it really explains where it comes from. But anyway, what I thought we could look at today is the 4 family members, the E7, G7, B flat, and D flat. And if instead of looking at the full E flat 7 chord, G7 chord, if we just looked at the triads, so now we have an E triad, we have a G triad, we have a B flat triad, and then we have a D flat triad. And right away you can hear the sound that happens all the time. Like you'll hear people do these triads all the time and move them in minor thirds, the same way that we move diminishes in minor thirds. You know, as guitar players, we know we play these all the time, move them in minor thirds, and it's easy for us because it's the same fingering each time. But Bud Powell one time did a pretty thing. He did something like, it's something along this line. Which is really a beautiful thing. It's taking just like a major arpeggio and then lowering the note on the bottom and raising the note on top. But I thought instead of doing 4 notes, we could just do 3 notes. So what 3 notes is just take the 3 notes of any of those triads. So you got the 3 notes of E triad. You should be able to invert those. Or the 3 notes of, let's say, the G triad. Oh, sorry. Or the 3 notes of the A flat triad, or I'm sorry, B flat triad. These are all the triad shapes. And then the last one is the D flat triad, which is really pretty too. All these are gorgeous. So for instance, what I'm trying to get at is, let's say we're playing a 2-5 in the key of A minor. So the first chord would be B minor 7 flat 5, or for those of us Barry people know it's D minor 6. Now here's our E7. So instead of the E7 though, let's do some of these triads. So maybe let's play the D flat triad to the A flat triad, which is B flat triad, sorry. So D flat triad to the B flat triad. It's really pretty. Let's do the E triad to the D flat triad. Or let's do the E triad to the G triad, which is also really pretty. But any of these triads will work. So we could do this whole thing. Oh, let's see. That's all starting with the 3rd in the bass. Now let's do all with the root in the bass. So here we go. Root in the bass. Root in the bass. All those are beautiful to end up on A minor. But what starts to happen, oh, let's do the one with the fifth in the bass. Sorry about that. Let's do the fifth in the bass. So here's the fifth in the bass. And then, now that's with the root in the bass, with the third in the bass, and with the fifth in the bass. And these are nice, and I like playing these. Like, that's a pretty run. Over E7, that's a very pretty run. But sometimes that sounds a little patterny for my taste. So what I like is just try to disguise it a little. So instead of just doing one series to the next one, you know, maybe just do a couple of them. Or maybe do like a move-in string series. So for instance, here's the one from G. And then we'll move to the one to D flat, which is pretty. Let's hear how that one sounds. It's a pretty sound. I love that. So how about if we try this one? I love that one. That one's really pretty. Now, sometimes you can also change the triad and move the root of the triad to make it into the diminished, which is really pretty. So here's E, and then you have to change the E to F because there's your diminished. So every one of these triads, if you move the root, you're going to get a diminished triad. If you move if you move the root up a half step, then you get the diminished that it comes from. So this is pretty. I love that sound. So if we set it again, 2-5. What a beautiful sound that is. But that's what I mean by like decorating it a little bit and kind of disguising it from sounding like moving through a minor third series. Not that there is anything wrong with that. I love that sound, but that sound generally has a tendency to sound patterny. And, you know, not that that's bad, but you don't always want to do that. Sometimes you want to just try to be musical with it without sounding patterny, like going down a series of minor thirds. So you might want to change things up. That's really pretty. I love that sound. Now let's take with the third in the bass. Let's say, so still we have to find where the root is. Now the root's on top, so we're going to say, I love that sound. Let's try the 2-5 again. I love that sound. That is so pretty. I love that sound. That is so pretty. Now let's do with the fifth in the bass, which means the root is in the middle. So we'll say. So again, here's our 2-5. And we'll say. That was really pretty stuff. See, I'm still working all these out. I know Thomas made a video about this a while ago, but these are really fascinating to me, these little triads. But then inverting them and seeing where they fall on the guitar and making these little movements happen. I just love the sound of it. Now, what's interesting that I haven't seen too many people talk about, and maybe this is something to explore further, which I haven't really, is we know if we go back to our original idea, the creation theory, where we have our diminished, and then we lower one note at a time, then we're going to get 4 dominants. But when we raise a note a half step from a diminished, now we're going to get 4 minor sixes. And those minor sixes happen to be on the fifth of all those dominants. So for instance, if we have E7, G7, B flat 7, and D flat 7, we have to have the minor 6 on the fifth of E7, which is B minor 6. We're going to have the minor 6 on the fifth of G7, which is D minor 6. We're going to have the minor 6 on the fifth of B flat 7, which is going to be F minor 6. And then we're going to have the minor 6 on the fifth of the D flat 7, which is going to be A flat minor 6. So if we take these same three notes, let's just take this E triad that we did before, and then we raise it a half step. There's our diminished, but that means if we raise it another half step, now we're going to get the minor 6 on the 5th of that, which would be B minor 6. So here's an E natural. I love this sound. But now we have to move this shape in minor thirds. I love that sound. That's a beautiful sound. Wait, let me do it up here. Let's say. Oh, man. I love that sound. So now that's if we did E triad like this with the E in the bass. Let's do a triad where we have the root on top. So like this one would be like, the easiest one to look at would be like B flat. There's B flat triad, and we know if we raise that note up a half step, there's our diminished. But now let's raise it up another half step. So now we have the minor 6 that's on the 5th of the B flat, which would be F minor 6. So we're going to say, I love this sound. Let's see. Now we have to move that in minor thirds. Oh, man. Woo! Let me just say. Now that is, so the concept is you try to make something musical out of it. So if we have these concepts and we say, okay, if you lower a note, you get the dominants. If you raise a note, you get the minor 6s. That's all fine and good. The question is, what are we going to do with that information to try to make it something musical or pretty sounding? So now I've never done this before. I love that sound. So if I could figure out a way to work that in, if we said, these are really beautiful. So it's just something to keep in mind. The hierarchy is what's important. So remember, even though dominants dominate, they do not dominate over diminished because they come from a diminished. And they not only come from a diminished, but so does its minor 6 on the 5th. So these are really beautiful things to look at. So check it out. Check out all the different ways to do it because I love these sounds of dominance, of just their major triads, and then also the minor 6s. They're all beautiful. Anyway, until next time, enjoy practicing your family.